I think a lot of guys would be surprised at what you can accomplish at any age, risk wise. Within reality, one of the examples I always use in my classes and with patients is, look, you're not going to be in the Olympics, at
Right.
least not the standard Olympics. I understand there's like an elderly Olympics and a Special Olympics. You might
Right.
qualify for either of those, but you're not going to be in the Olympics. And you're also not going to be president. You really aren't. And neither am I. But if we throw that kind of thing out, you can accomplish almost anything with a little foresight and planning and a lot of passion and desire. You can make it happen. Here's my story about coming to Chicago. I was in Denver, and the economy was kind of deadened. It was after the dot-com boom days.
Right.
It went bust. Everybody moved away. Social life was awful, like overnight. Just not a lot of quality friends to be made, and definitely no business, no media. And I was at a junction point between just being your garden variety psychiatrist for life, just go to the office, see people, help people, which is honorable, and then go home and just do the same thing every weekday. And boring. I could not deal with that, and I had enough foresight to see, as wonderful as the weather is, and beautiful place to be in and healthy place to live, I can't do this. I got to go to a bigger city because I'm moving more toward the media, and I'm going to be a different kind of psychiatrist. So I got to make this change. I'm going to have to move pretty clearly. And the thing that spurred me into it is I had some sort of weird thing happen to my feet, which they told me was like an old sports injury or something like this. And I had incredibly painful walking.
Oh.
My feet were killing me. And there were all kinds of, bizarre diagnoses that ended up, being proven untrue. But while I was getting this checked out, some people were telling me, oh, yeah, you might have this deadly disease. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Yeah, yeah, it was
From your
horrible.
feet?
It was horrible. Yeah. And I'm like, no. And I was like, this can't be true. And I kept investigating it. But for a while there, I was thinking, whoa, you mean I might die? It was like this sudden mortality notification.
Right.
It was like, whoa, people die. They really do. Even though I'm a doctor,
Right.
we kind of resist death and we fight against it. We think we're invincible against it. We never think about it for ourselves. So I had to confront possible death,
Oh.
even though it was totally off the mark. Never was true. And that made me stop and think, you know what? If this is possible, I cannot afford to keep slogging along doing the easy, complacent thing. And it's huge money, almost overqualified for. And I, chucked all that to just come to Chicago. And I didn't know what I was doing as far as how the city operates. And I didn't know exactly what I was going to be doing for a living, except I got a little temporary job that they made all kinds of promises about. Oh, you'll fill up, you have all these patients, blah, blah, blah. You know what? I arrived here, not a single patient.
Oh my
I,
God.
I, I had to build a practice from scratch for someone else. It wasn't even my own.
Jesus.
And I was stuck in that. And you know how much I made the first year here? 30 grand. And you know what? It was worth it. Now, you could say that was foolish. I shouldn't have trusted these people that I took this temp job from. But you know what? Risk benefit ratio.
You bring up an interesting point, and I think it needs clarification because people, when they take a risk, they sometimes are focused on victory, on the positive outcome.
Right.
A lot of times when like I said, I've started 3 businesses, 2 have failed. After Valiant, we spent $1 million in the internet boom, building a online staffing company. A lot of promise, and then the market sort of changed on us. And then I had an investment company also in the middle 6 figures that unfortunately didn't go the right direction. And what I want to say is people say, well, if I take that risk, the only fruit of it is if it succeeds, and that's not true. Even failure bears a lot of fruit. And what I mean
Yes.
by that
Yes.
is it's given me it's unbelievable to see how the world really works when things break, because I've learned like so much about how when stuff screws up, especially on a decent scale with money and creditor. And you learn I have learned, if you're observant, you learn the workings of problems very well. So you understand how the world works on a level. A
Yes.
guy who's kind of
Like
gone
an
on the top.
engineer.
Yeah,
Like an
doesn't.
engineer.
Yeah, you want to learn how to fix a computer, drop it, right? And then you got to
Right.
open it up. I actually just did that. I was replacing the CPU because I screwed it up in my computer back at home, and I lifted the heatsink up and I ripped the CPU out of the motherboard. And then I was like, oh my God, I'd read that and I had to go in each of the little gold pins on the CPU. I had to use an X-Acto knife and write them like little soldiers in formation. And then I put it back into the motherboard and actually the computer turned on. Unbelievable.
Wow.
And it's a longer story with a thermal grease seal that I hadn't done right. Anyhow, but it was so satisfying when the thing actually worked. And I learned how
are the photon torpedoes?
Yeah. The whole thing is now working fine. And I wouldn't have said ahead of time, let me screw up. But through the screw up, I actually learned more about the workings of the computer. So my point is that I have so much more education and a lot more confidence now that I've been in the middle of things when they've crashed, because I'm not as phased, and I've been there. So if something starts to crash before, I can either nip it in the bud or say, all right, folks, yeah, this is going to get ugly for a period, but here's what's going to happen. And that's talking about, that's a leadership attribute to have weathered some failure as well. So I think when guys say, should I take the risk? If you have a reasonable 70% chance of success, I think it's good. Also know that the 30% that it fails, as long as it's not life-threatening, you're going to learn a lot.
Yeah. As long as you pace yourself.
Right.
You know, I'd apply that to the situation of, say, taking a chance on a new job or even getting fired. That kind of going through a shit storm does so much for you that
we got him to cuss on tapes.
Yeah,
folks.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, it actually happened. Congratulations. But if you've ever been fired once, you can never be harmed again by that happening to you, because you know what it is. You know you live. You know you survive. You're much wiser for it. And you're immune to it ever hurting you again. If you've been broken up with or broken up, you're immune to it.
So yeah, basically it's foolish to hope for an easy, flawless life. A, it's impractical, and B, that teaches nothing. So take some calculated risks and learn through the experience, whether they succeed right away or you need to work through the challenges and they succeed in the longer term.